healthy. I can imagine that now with the extra 2 weeks extended on lockdown, I can imagine that is a great opportunity for some challenges, and some challenges especially with regards to our thinking patterns, and where we go to with our thinking. And keeping in line with where we are at in the RQ material currently is with, as a man think, so is he. So we are busy with the thinking patterns, and our desire is always and is still to grow, as Paul urges us on, that we need to renew our mind, that we are not from this world, and that we need to try and not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed. Why and how? By the renewing of our mind. And that is still our aim. So that's a massive part of growth that happens with regards to relational intelligence, becoming more intelligent with how I relate with myself and with others. Ask of us to transform the way we think by the renewing. And I urge you, and I want to encourage you, that renewing is in our control. So it is within our empowerment to choose what thinking patterns and what thoughts are we feeding. So how are we lingering and allowing certain thinking and thoughts to come in and to prolong, and as the more we give into them undisciplinedly, and that meaning I go into it, I feed it, I allow the triggered emotion and perception that goes with that kind of thinking, I allow it to flood me, and that will have an emotional response, it will have a hormonal response. So the thing about those kind of things is it's not taken lightly. So the body always operates exactly the same. So if we just think, okay, I'm just gonna, sorry, I kicked the table. So if we just allow that kind of thinking to go its course that takes us to a response of fear or anxiety or frustration, or however the response is in our emotions, that our body responds as well. So there's cortisol, and there is adrenaline, etc., that is kicked off, as we chatted about the amygdala and its place last time, and there is a definite reaction for us to want to fight or flee from a certain situation. So whichever is the desire in your heart, and the moment that we realize we cannot fight really. So fighting might mean that I cannot speak my mind, I cannot just say, I cannot just go, I cannot just, or flight might be, I cannot just leave, I cannot just go away, I cannot just let it go away, I cannot change it, it's out of my control. If the moment we realize that both of those responses is not going to help, we really get into this really disempowered, out of control, freeze experience. And that is a very anxious and fearful environment to get ourselves in, because it's almost like a place of getting stuck. And we really feel victimized and despondent in that space. It's rightfully there. Our brain has it. We can naturally go to that kind of places. It's literally that kind of places where it needs to be, it's actually there for the moments just before we die. It sounds weird, but that is why we freeze, why it's there, because we can freeze and just be in the moment. That's what the good side of the freezing is for, is to help us to get ready to die, or to brace ourselves if we're going to head in with impact. that's the kind of place for freeze. But the thing is that unfortunately sometimes we cause through toxic thinking that we allow, we cause the kind of triggered and frightening and out of control experiences for ourselves. And unfortunately, circumstances also add to making us feel that it is a frightening, out of control experience. And if we are not able to help ourselves in those moments, and we don't feel empowered to direct our thoughts thoroughly, or to get ourselves into a safer and healthier place, thinking wise and emotional wise, it can be a little devastating as to where we go to, where we will end up if we allow the thinking pattern to run its course, and if we allow to feed it and it becomes stronger. So I want to remind you of that, the kinds of thinking patterns we should not feed and allow to linger and have its way are those things that we want to unlearn about ourselves. So it's the ones that take us to places where we think, like, say for instance, it is the, I'm interrupting myself. So that kind of thinking we don't want to allow, that we don't want to feed, is the ones that takes us to our wounded question mark, our woundedness, where we doubt whether the wound isn't actually true. Isn't it perhaps true? Isn't it because say for instance, for an example, a client of mine don't want to ask somebody else how to do a certain task because himself is a senior, has a team underneath himself. He feels that it's going to be belittling, and that people is going to respond in thinking and saying, you're supposed to know it yourself. Why are you asking? What's wrong? So, i.e., he goes, that funnel, that thinking pattern takes him to a woundedness of, it goes from, I'm not supposed to ask that question. I'm supposed to know. And it gets to, how useless are you not to know this? And that is what he's actually fearful of. So the thing is for us not to numb ourselves with experience, to just think, I'm just going to brace myself, that freeze place. I'm just going to brace it and get over it and through it. No, but to empathically own. And when I say empathically own, I'm saying we need to own that situation, what is happening in ourselves. But how? With empathy. Not with condemnation and judgment on ourselves and towards ourselves, but with empathy, empathizing and acknowledging that should this situation is taking me to that place of woundedness, of that desperation, of that experience or fear of what if this is now going to be true again, that people are going to say, how useless are you, and that's going to put him in a place again of, I'm useless, I don't have worth, what am I doing here? I'm useless. So, and that gets him stuck. So that is what I'm speaking about. That's the thinking patterns that needs to unlearn. Those are the things that makes us conform to this world. Why? As Viktor Frankl also says, everything can be taken away from you. Your dignity, your clothes, your food, your comfort, your place of stay, your life as you've known it. But one thing nobody can ever take away from you is your choice. That is ours to make. And so I want to encourage you with that. It's the same thing as we do not conform to this world, because that very thing that I want to unlearn, that woundedness, will take me to behaving in ways to get the need met. The need that wound tells me that I'm not good enough, that I'm useless. There's a need that's now lacking. It is a lack of affirmation. It's a lack of belonging. It's a lack of appreciation. It's a lack of love. So I'm going to externally do things and behave in ways to get the need met. But what am I doing? I'm conforming to how the world wants me to behave. I'm conforming and playing into the situation or the person's behavior. Instead of saying, sure, let me stand back and acknowledge and empathize with where I am going to, and that this is not healthy. I'm selling my soul to go to that. I'm conforming to a world that does not serve me, that's not healthy, that does not serve God, that wants me to behave carnally, that wants me to behave in needy ways, just about getting my needs met, controlling the next person to get my needs met, giving into the control of another person to get my needs met, and to feel okay, I'll do that for you so that you can find me useful. That's conforming to the patterns of this world. That's the thing we should stop by the renewing of our mind. That means the renewing means letting go of that which is not me. I need to unlearn that I am not useless. Okay? That what am I then? If I am useful, how does that look like? So, and if I believed I'm useful, how will I behave in that situation? I would stand up and say, sure, I can see you are very anxious to help and make me behave in this way. But you know what? I want to ask you, how do I get this done? Or can you assist me? And to remember that whatever they think or however they respond are their decisions. So we are living according to who we are. So we are renewing our mind. Another thing I want also that works well in this situation is with Viktor Frankl. He was a Holocaust survivor, and he was in a Holocaust, in Auschwitz camp. And so he, along with his mates, they, bare feet, very little clothes, had to build a railway in snow every day. And they all received a watery soup at the end of the day. And the soldiers were quite, brainwashed and quite aggressive. And so they were, for instance, one day he mentioned a story that they attacked him. So they hit him with the back of the rifle. And so they either wanted two things. They wanted him to cower, so they wanted him to lie there and hide his face and play the victim. And that is the fleeing, the giving up. Or they wanted him to fight, to get up, wanting to harass the soldier back. And because then they can torture him, because he's now misbehaved. Now the thing here is, when he's realized that this is what's going on, they want to take away everything, but the thing they cannot is how I respond. And how he did respond is, he stood up in the snow, got up on his one knee, stood up, now he's bleeding, but he stood up, he looked at the guy, nodded at him, and continued walking. And so the soldier was not happy, so he threw his toys, he shouted some horrible things at Victor. But the thing is that he remained empowered. He remained intact with his self-respect. No, regardless of the soldier's behavior, he responded from a place of respect, of self-respect, of saying, you know what? I know you want me to behave in certain ways, but I'm not going to behave in the ways you want me to. I'm going to behave in the ways I am. This is who I am, and I can decide who I am. And I can decide then, if I know who I am, I can decide how to behave from who I am. And that's exactly the renewing of our mind. That is what that looks like. So I just want to encourage you and challenge you in this time that just because, that story is very uplifting and motivating and inspiring because it happened in Holocaust. It's like, that is life and death stuff. But I want to encourage you that just because we're not in a physical Holocaust does not mean the boardroom meeting, the meeting with my superior, the conversation with a family member, or that task that I have to do, that thing, is not your Holocaust. It doesn't mean that isn't the prison that imprisons you in such a way that you feel either like a victim wanting to give up, or either want to bite like a dog that's hurt, fight, get out of this place, fight back, with no regard. I just want to fight, get people away from me, bite them, so that you can get out of my way. That's the other way. And that is what usually the two responses we see in people under stress. When we are under stress, when we are pressured, when we feel out of control due to a situation or due to people's behavior and situation that causes within us. And the thing is, I want to remind you is that it is your choice. That how are you going to think? How are you going to unlearn what this thing is making you think about yourself? And how are you going to remind yourself of who am I and how do I think and respond from who I am in that situation? So I hope this encouraged you. There's so much things and so many answers I wish I could give you on your questions. And I hope for tomorrow night that we can have some discussion around this. I don't want it to move on with the material because I want to pause with this, because this is a massive part of growth, of relating differently, more intelligently with ourselves. What is relating differently? It is talking differently to myself, and thus then talking differently to other people. That is what relating means. So if I'm still talking to myself and having a self-talk where that thing that I need to unlearn is still very active and being fed, and being almost worshipped because it's fed, that woundedness is being fed, if that is still prominent in my life, then I'm not really growing. And that's why I want to pause here, and I want to encourage you, if you're not feeling it, if you're not getting this big thing here for yourself, please connect with me, that we can have a conversation, or please share, ask a question tomorrow night or ask a question at the RQ session, so that we can even elaborate on that. If you are brave enough in the big group, so that we can use it as an example and unpack it. I won't expose you, but it's great learning that can happen right here. And often people go through this stage and they don't really get into what is the woundedness I need to unlearn and move into the truth about who I am and what does that mean to live out of that. If people don't do that steps well, then there's depth missing that is now done. And so I want to really encourage you. It's a really important part. It's like a pivotal point of growth of the relational intelligence concept, and it's a pivotal point of understanding others differently, being calmer in difficult and conflict situations. All of that cannot really happen if we don't really have a solid internal understanding of myself and where I respond from. So that kind of awareness is so important. So I want to encourage you with that. Let us chat about it, and please connect with me privately or even in the WhatsApp group if you don't mind. And I look forward to connecting with you guys. Stay safe and healthy.